I had a chance to get over and dive in Victoria, but like last spring, I was having a bit of ear trouble. So I rested up for a couple of weeks and then went for a test dive here at Telegraph Cove, just north of Victoria. I wanted to place a time-lapse camera on the bottom, but unlike a lot of the coast, this area had an overabundance of kelp, and I figured that if I placed my camera down there, I'd probably never find it again. But swimming along, there seemed to be a lot of life in the shallows, including this helmet crab, which I hadn't seen one of in quite some time. So I decided it was probably reasonable to stick my camera down just a meter or two and see what I managed to capture. And to my surprise, despite being in what effectively was the intertidal zone, it picked up this decorator crab wandering around. Time-lapse camera deployed, I swam out of the bay and into the bull kelp beds just offshore. It was quite shallow in the kelp beds, and I couldn't really find enough depth to dive down deep enough to get neutral. There was a fair bit of current running, and I didn't really want to swim too far offshore and have a very long swim home. So I spent most of my time diving in the kelp bed. It was an environment I haven't dove in quite some time, and I really felt quite clumsy. It didn't really help that visibility was only at 2 or 3 meters. While resting on the surface, I saw something I hadn't seen before. This looks like a crab or possibly a hermit crab larva. There were lots of kelp crabs in amongst the bull kelp. I drifted down in the current towards the lee of one of the kelp beds. Frequently that's a spot where there'll be a drop-off, but in this case all I found was more kelp. Here I thought I was cleverly moving my selfie stick around the kelp stipe, but instead I was just getting it all tangled up. I wanted to get a shot of the sun coming down through the kelp canopy, so I rotated around and looked back up, and that's when I felt a bit of vertigo, and I took that as a sign that my ears were not happy. So it was time to swim home, and unfortunately that was the last time I actually got to go freediving while I was over in Victoria. But I did manage to get out and actually do some snorkeling, something which I don't do very often, and I saw quite a bit while I was doing that. And I'll probably try and post a video about that at a later point.